A new Department of Justice report says the U.S. prison population is at its lowest level since 2002. By the end of 2015, 1 in 37 American adults were under some sort of correctional supervision. That's the lowest since 1994. CBS News Justice reporter Paula Reid joins me now from Washington for a closer look at these numbers. Paula, the prison population shrunk by almost 2% last year. What was behind the drastic drop?
Elaine, it's a combination of policymakers reevaluating the so-called war on drugs and also less crime. In terms of the war on drugs, you see a push to keep non-violent drug offenders in prison for less time. And then also the FBI says that violent crime and property crimes were down over 14%. That combination means fewer prisoners.
Criminal justice reform has been an area, as you know, Paula, for rare bipartisan support. Why is that?
It's so true. It is rare, and it's not unusual to see Rand Paul wandering around the Department of Justice when Eric Holder was there, and the two were really working on these issues. The fact is that we are spending way too much money to incarcerate way too many people. And now different people can argue who should be incarcerated and for how long. Democrats argue that sentencing guidelines disproportionately impact minorities. And then you have fiscal conservatives who look at the amount of money we spend and the fact that there's no data to really support the idea that it's keeping us any safer. So you get a lot of bipartisan support for just reevaluating who we keep in prison and for how long.
It's an interesting coalition. Well, have these decreases affected both state and federal prison populations?
For this specific decrease that we're talking about today, about 40% of that has happened at the federal level. Now, most prisoners are housed at the state level, but at the federal level, you've seen a big reform in sentencing. So how long people have to stay in prison if they are convicted for a nonviolent drug offense. Some of those changes were made retroactive. So about a year ago, a bunch of people got out of prison earlier than they thought. That also contributed to this decrease. But at the state level, you see some state-by-state measures sort of pushing for similar changes. But Elaine, you also see changes in the way prosecutors are dealing with people who have mental health issues or opioid addiction.
Well, Paula, is this trend expected to continue into the next administration?
It'll be interesting to see because these are, of course, policy-driven changes for the most part. So a Trump administration could make policy changes and reverse this trend. But again, there is bipartisan support. Donald Trump ran a very law and order campaign, and some police groups have questioned the wisdom of these reforms, saying that it should be less broad strokes and more specific based on individuals and a case-by-case evaluation of whether or not someone gets out of jail any earlier. So at this point, it is unclear whether or not this trend will continue over the next 4 to 8 years.
All right, another issue to watch in 2017. Paula Reid in Washington for us. Paula, thank you.